Alright, so I just had to grab my fabric and accordion folded on my lap. So this is, as I mentioned, I'm hemming up my wife's hammock right now. Um, this is 1.6 Hyper D. You can see I haven't bothered to cut the selvage off. You can, depends on, I actually find that these attachments you don't really need to. It tucks under there pretty nicely. I just, when I'm eyeballing this and doing my folds, I just ignore it. Very rarely does it ever show unless it's exceptionally long, which happens in fabrics. So a few things. First, you'll notice I don't have this machine in a special table. And the one thing you do not want with these attachments is any sort of, you don't want to pull the fabric away. Because when it starts to come out of this, it's, again, difficult to get it back in. I had a nice, a bigger box that I was using for the time being. Right now I have a smaller box. So I'm actually just going to put that right there. It makes life easy. Helps the fabric not slide off. And so the way to get this started, I'm just going to eyeball the hem. And this is the side. I'm just starting this, so really the end of this doesn't matter so much. It's probably going to get cut off with a hot knife or rolled into a channel anyway, so this doesn't need to be perfect. So anyway, just kind of estimate it, hold it there and put a pin in it. You can clip it as well if you want. So again, I'm sort of lining this up. I've got my fabric just off the outside. I don't know if you can see that very well from where the camera is, but I got my fabric just off the outside of the dogs right here. And I'm going to just advance this to make sure it's under the feet. Press her foot down. Stitch. There we go. Now, to get this started with the foot, just kind of get it near. You can just kind of roll the fabric in there, and that's it. Sort of takes care of itself. Now, when feeding this, there's sort of two different ways you can do this. You can, and I think Jellyfish mentioned this in her video. You can pinch it with your thumb and your middle finger, and then kind of use your index finger to point. I don't like twisting my hand, and I end up pulling on it right here, which isn't, I think you can see, there's too much tension right there for me. So I tend to just grab it and just do this, and just kind of hold it. And the looser you can leave this, you don't want it too loose. It's not the looser. But again, these guides are made for thicker fabric, and so if you pull this to the left at all, what's going to happen is your seam's going to shrink because it'll be on the inside of the curve, and you kind of want it to be flush as possible to get an even seam in there. So what I'm going to do is just basically just pinch it for the, there's my 1/4 inch, 3/8 of an inch for the, I guess it's a 1/4 inch for the inside hem. Roll it over, grab it so it's around 3/8 of an inch. Doesn't have to be perfect. And these guides come in a bit, so you can look at this outside point right here. This is wider than it's going to come out up here. So as long as if you can see a little metal here, it's fine. What you don't want to see is you don't want to start to see your edge come up right like that. If you start seeing your edge peak on this corner, you need to stop, because what's happening is it's rolling out, and that's what happens when the fabric pulls. And in that case, what you actually need to do is pull this away. Make sure you haven't lost your hem yet. Sometimes you'll pinch it out. It'll be a little wide at first, and then just kind of redirect it to where you want it, and then put it back in. And on the back side, you'll just see a little kink in your hem. No big deal. And of course, because we're doing these rolled hems with your tension, this isn't really specific to these guides, but I always make sure that if anything, my tension on the top is a little, I'm gonna say tight past perfect, only because I want to make sure that the bottom thread coming out of the bobbin, which is on the outside of the hammock, is taut. I don't want any looseness on the outside thread. It's just liable to catch. So again, I'm just gonna move the guy back into place. Get rid of these clips. Yeah, the other cool thing, you can go in reverse with these attachments in place. Again, the walking foot definitely helps with this, and you can use regular walking feet with this. I mentioned this machine has it built in. You can use the larger feet. What happens sometimes though is they'll hit the front of this guide, and it's fine. Some of the cheaper feet are this foot on the walking foot can pop off its little pegs. Put it back on. But these feet, you can kind of adjust it. You can swing this out and pull this, and this doesn't have to be perfectly. The front of this doesn't have to be perfectly flat. So if you have it at a bit of an angle, as long as it's going into the machine relatively straight, your feed dog should take care of it. So because this is a side hem, and I don't really need to tack this, but what I do, which is kind of a cool trick I read somewhere, is I start my stitch length pretty low, pretty short, and just get a few really short stitches in, and then increase it to the length that I want. And that actually has the same effect of locking your stitch, because yeah, the lock stitch so close together, it's effectively a tack, at least for the purpose of side hems. All right, so let's get started.